I'm Ben Riches. I essentially run a series of functions that are wrapped up called Shared Development Services and Governance. So I look after solution design, testing at the back end of the process, and then I also have a responsibility for how we release software and the methods and tools, kind of most poignantly for this discussion, in terms of the way in which we work across the entire development lifecycle. So my background is a developer. I kind of worked in development shops and got interested in this technology, and then through that opportunity that came up as our organisation moved and shifted, I was given the responsibility to look after testing at the same time to try and bring testing and development closer together in the way in which I think Steve was just talking about. So I'm going to hand over to Paul, who's the head of testing at Aviva, to take you through the first set of this presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I hope you're enjoying your breakfast, and sorry for disturbing you. Okay, so a bit about Aviva. Large company, insurance company, global company. As you can see, potentially we're still talking about 43 million customers worldwide, 4,500 employees in IT, so a big span across the globe. The challenge we have, and I'm sure it's similar to many of you here, is retaining those customers. So in the current climate, lots of developments in mobile technology, in web services. The importance of getting great quality services out there to our real customers is really significant. And if you're sitting at home, the number of adverts you see for car insurance in the UK, that market is just so pressurised. So any time the IT services start to fail, customers are just gone. They won't come back. So retaining customers, winning new customers is really important. So getting great quality software out there is really so important now. Maybe 20 years ago, when we were mainly a call centre based operation, we could cope with some of that. If we had some downtime, our call centres could take a message, ring customers back. There was a buffer in between Aviva and the customers. Now it's really direct. And also we do a lot of business with strategic partners, so HSBC, Santander, Barclays, etc. And they're really demanding exceptional levels of service. So how we approach our view on quality and how we ship and test software is really changing. Some of the themes that have already been covered are about that speed to market. As an organisation, we have still come from a very waterfall-dominated project discipline, and we have large releases of code on a quarterly basis dropping out into the market. That is now seen as a real constraint, and the reason we have those releases mainly is to allow us to have that big testing phase that Steve talked about, at the back end of the process, doing our integration testing, doing our regression testing. That then means that the business are constrained. We can only ship code on a quarterly basis. And what we're trying to do with SQS, Coverity, is understand how we can get regular checks and quality so we can ship more frequently and when we're ready. And it's back to that speed to market. It's breaking that massive cycle of cumbersome releases coming through the year. Oh, sorry. As I've touched on, customer expectations. Probably most of you here have got some sort of smartphone device. The expectation is turn it on, it's going to work every time. If we're shipping apps onto those devices, they need to meet the same quality. And how we understand and track and measure that quality coming through is really needs to change, and that's where some of the Coverity toolset can really help. Previously, as a test centre, I've had no visibility of what the quality has been like in unit test or system test. The first time we see quality is when it comes into integration testing, and by then it's too late to affect the quality. All you're doing is trying to find and remove the defects. So anything we can do to get that visibility of quality earlier is really key, and that's what this is about.
So I think what Paul's talked about there really is the objective that we're trying to work through to create more regular, more frequent release rhythm, being able to be in a place where we can ship code weekly, daily, monthly, rather than having a kind of very, very heavy rhythm with 4 very big releases, dropping it in more frequent, more regular releases throughout the year. And we've made some great progress towards being able to do this, and some of the technology that we're talking about today has really helped us do it. So the key thing for us really, I think, in doing this is about closing this gap, the gap between the point when the defect's injected into the system and the point in which you find it, which is what Paul was talking about. So what we've been trying to do is move to a point where there's a focus on quality all the way through the life cycle. So instead of it being the responsibility of testing at the back end of the process, it's everybody's responsibility, whether they're constructing requirements, doing design work or shipping code. So for us, that's not just about, you know, saying to people you need to be responsible for quality. It's about being able to measure that and understand that in a way where you can then track excuse me, where the defects are being injected into your system, and you can start trying to deal with those. So for people in the business analysis end of the spectrum, that's quite a shift. In the development space, that's also quite a shift. And what we're doing with Coverity is it offers us an opportunity to make that non-intrusive to a developer. We can use those tools in a regular, daily fashion that makes that just, you know, visible and measurable without becoming an overhead for them to maintain. So we've done a big piece of work, essentially working on our software engineering strategy, trying to move forwards from where we've been today, as Paul says, talking about a very waterfall-focused approach, trying to drive things to the end, trying to redevelop the way in which we work around Agile, trying to move to a place where we've got the fundamental building blocks in play to enable us to do that. So, you know, we really got this pressure to be, you know, better, faster, cheaper, as I'm sure everybody in this room does. And what we've tried to do is make sure that we're putting the real foundations in place that enable us to do that, whether that's, you know, right back from real fundamental basic stuff around a different approach to source code management, moving to distributed version control systems from centralized version control systems, all the way through to kind of automated deployment with the view of constructing this continuous delivery pipeline that enables you to get from idea into implementation at speed with real guarantees around the quality of what you ship at the end of it. So for us, that's been about building a core set of foundations that we can put in place. So that's really around distributed version control, a continuous integration platform, an artifact repository. When we've integrated our code, where does it sit? A dependency management tool, and then a deployment management tool that kind of pushes things in an automated fashion from idea to implementation all in one go. So that in itself is great. But what we're trying to do is supercharge that by putting static analysis into the mix. So where we're in our continuous integration space, we're trying to work to link Coverity into Jenkins as a continuous integration server, so that as we build our software every day, we're running Coverity against it and we're getting a set of results on the quality visible every single day as we're building the software all the way through. From the point code's being cut, the quality is visible. Now that's at points uncomfortable, because you're going to have points where your code isn't working, but it's visible and you can see it and you can tell where you are with your code all the way through, which is just dragging the visibility of quality back to the front of the process and giving you a better idea of the quality that you're going to ship at the end, or whether you're ready to ship. That gives us the ability to kind of measure and trend over time and drive things forwards, which gives us a real ability to try and improve. And I think one of the problems previously is, whereas historically there's always been very good stats at the back end of the process in QA testing phases, there hasn't been the same level of visibility and consistency of data in the development phase. So Coverity as a platform has enabled us to do that.